In examination of the spiritual meaning and passion of songs and hymns that have been a part of Christian church both past and present. There are some hymns that possess that rich quality of spiritual value that deserves being considered anthems of God's grace and redemption. One such hymn is "There is a Fountain Filled with Blood." I avail myself this opportunity to narrate the story behind the most beloved and the most controversial hymn, "There is a Fountain Filled with Blood," which is written by William Cowper, the English poet and hymn writer. William Cowper was one of the few hymn writers that was also recognized as a secular poet. This most beloved and yet tormented literary figure was born in his father's rectory in England on November 26, 1731. His father George was a chaplain. His mother died when he was just 6 years old. Cowper was first sent to a boarding school. It was here he first began suffering from frequent emotional difficulties. He was later transferred to Westminster, where he was much happier. In spite of all his intellectual achievements, William Cowper was physically frail and emotionally sensitive throughout his childhood. One of the traumatic experiences that contributed to his emotional instability was the death of his mother when he was just 6 years old. Unable to properly deal with this grief that he has experienced as a small child, it stayed with him throughout his life. He never stopped grieving for his mother. Even though he passed his law examination and was licensed as a lawyer, the very prospect of appearing before the bar for his final examination frightened him to the extent that he had a mental breakdown from which he never recovered. As a result, he never practiced law, but preferred the study and writing of literature. Added to the anxiety of his bar examination that resulted in an unsuccessful suicide attempt. He was therefore placed in an insane asylum for a period of 18 months. During his depression, Cowper wrote one of the most beloved and most controversial hymn, "There is a Fountain Filled with Blood." It is most likely written in 1771. While sitting alone one day at his desk in his little house, under the inspiration of Holy Spirit and with the words of Prophet Zechariah, which goes like, "On that day a fountain shall be opened for the house of David and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, to cleanse them from sin and impurity." The hymn is a meditation on the saving power of the blood of Christ. Fresh in his mind, he began to pen these words, comforting words. "There is a fountain filled with blood, drawn from Immanuel's vein. The sinners plunged beneath that blood lose all their guilty stains." William Cowper penned these words not long before his death on April 25, 1800. It was at the writing of these words that he became aware of the efficacy of Christ's complete atonement for his sins. It was one of the first hymns he created after his original significant period of distress. It repeatedly refers to a fountain washing away the sins of man. Several years later, Lowell Mason set William Cowper's word to music. In spite of his mental depression, emotional distress, and spiritual doubts, God used the experience of one man, William Cowper, to pen the words that have been an inspiration to the church for 200 years. These words have been used by the Holy Spirit to encourage many saints and a call to wayward sinners to find their peace with God, which can only be found in that fountain filled with blood drawn from Immanuel's vein.